Natalie Certain clearly wasn't needed as the Cars franchise already had two great commentators in Darrell and Bob. The tractors weren't given any personalities, so I couldn't possibly rank them any higher on this list. Axelrod is easily one of the most forgettable Pixar villains. The twist wasn't clever and fell flat. If Tuma was given a more significant role, he could have been an interesting character, but due to his lack of screen time and character development, unfortunately I had to place him low on this list. The three retired piston cut racers and their side plot with Smokey at Thomasville took valuable time away from the already existing characters such as Mater and Sally, who could have used that extra screen time in Cars 3. Miss Fritter is a much more ruthless take on Mater. I did enjoy the character, but once again she didn't add enough towards the main plot of Cars 3 to make her presence justifiable. Frank made a huge impact, even with the little screen time he was given. Lightning couldn't stop seeing visions of him during his final race in Cars 1. Bob and Darrell bounced off each other really well. My favourite scene with them is their commentary they give during the first race of Cars 2 that took place in Tokyo. I kind of felt bad for Cal. He constantly got the short end of the stick during his races with Lightning, even if it was just some friendly banter. The marketing for Cars 3 suggested that Jackson Storm was going to be Lightning's most threatening and ruthless antagonist to date. He wasn't anywhere near as threatening as Axelrod, and some of his sarcasm didn't feel needed, but overall he's a good enough rival to Lightning. I decided to bunch all the races in Cars 2 other than Francesco together, as they all are just used to give Lightning a little competition. There's nothing bad about the races in Cars 2, but like the tractors they weren't really given distinct personalities. Minnie and Van were delightful accidental Radiator Springs tourists. I appreciated that the filmmakers brought their characters back for Cars 2 for a funny cameo. Rod's your typical cool secret agent. I was shocked that Disney and Pixar allowed the filmmakers to give Rod a gruesome on-screen death. If you were a fan of the character, I recommend checking out the Cars 2 video game, as he was one of the most fun characters to play in the game. Smokey was Doc Hudson's crew chief back in the day. I loved how Smokey added new layers to Doc Hudson's character, and really liked that he came back during the final race to be Cruz's first crew chief. Mia and Tia are your typical bandwagon fans. There's an adult joke in the original Cars with these two that went over my head as a child but is noticeable now that I'm older. Harv is like Sterling in that he cares more about Lightning's money than Lightning himself. Once Lightning goes missing, Harv worries about Lightning not getting sponsored by Dynaco, not how Lightning's been whilst he was missing. As the main character of Cars 3, you'd expect Cruz to be much higher up on this list, but although she is likeable enough, I just couldn't personally get into her character, and she didn't convey any emotion out of me in the same ways the filmmakers intended. Rusty and Dusty weren't the most hysterical jokesters, but they cared for Lightning much more than Harv and Sterling did, even though they did kind of mess up selling Rusties to Sterling in Cars 3. Grem and Acer are the main henchmen for Professor Z in Cars 2. The ruthless lemons are more than happy to carry out any mission that they have been tasked with for Professor Z, even if that means critically injuring several World Grand Prix racers. Todd may only have background cameos in each of the Cars movies, but it's always fun to look out for Todd the Pizza Planet truck Easter egg in every film. These delinquent road hazards are the Cars versions of reckless gang members. They find enjoyment out of causing danger to other vehicles on the highway. I did find them visually appealing during their scene in the middle of the night when they were all glowing as they were messing around with Mack. Tex is a genuine and respected friendly businessman. He values honesty and loyalty over success. As the King said, Tex has been good to him all of these years, so it's obvious that Tex cares about his racers and doesn't just look at what money they'll make him. In my opinion, the whole scene in Cars 2 where Lightning and his crew travel to Luigi and Guido's hometown to visit Uncle Topolino the gentle Wiseman car was one of the best scenes in Cars 2. Siddley was used as a getaway vehicle for Finn, Mater and Holly. I thoroughly enjoyed the character, but do feel that he would have been a better fit in the Planes movies. Sterling is a type of character who you love to hate. It was obvious once he first met Lightning that he didn't care in the slightest for him, and only cared about his legacy. Chick Hicks has a very large personality. He loves to be the focus of the conversation. Chick may have been Lightning's least threatening rival, but there's no doubt that he fitted the role as an unlikable jerk extremely well, and I loved how he was brought back for a cameo in Cars 3, where he was just as entertaining as he was in the original. Finn Mcmisile for some reason gets so much hate. Personally, I absolutely loved the British spy car, and loved his opening oil rig escape action sequence, which perfectly set the tone of Cars 2. The King is probably the oldest race car to compete for the Piston Cup. He's a friendly racing legend and is respected by almost every other race car. Sheriff is the least interesting Radiator Springs resident, but is still very charismatic. The Sheriff's best scenes were in the Mater and the Ghostlight short when he tells the made-up story of the Ghostlight to Mater. Red is extremely passionate about Radiator Springs. He would do anything to protect it and is often seen watering plants in the films and shorts to keep his town looking beautiful. Holly Shiftwell is the apprentice, learning the ropes of being a spy from her mentor Finn Mcmisile. I don't know why, but as a kid I loved the fact that she had the ability to fly and still find her gadgets cool to this day. Radiator Springs veteran Lizzie has gone a little crazy now that she's in her old age, but is still sweet and will do anything to sell her bumper stickers. Sarge is a World War II veteran and leads an army to help eliminate the Lemons in Cars 2. Sarge's best moments are when he is arguing with Filmore, even though deep down they are best buds. Filmore's a hippie who believes in all things natural. He's always driving his next door neighbour Sarge crazy. Filmore's an easygoing peace car and is a fuel export for Lightning Mcqueen in Cars 2. Mack's role significantly increased from Cars 2 where he was hardly in the film to Cars 3 where he was one of the main characters. In both Cars and Cars 3, Mack acts as a friend for Lightning even if he was the reason that Lightning went missing in the original. Francesco Benali is easily the best character in Cars 2 in my opinion. He's the most successful European race car. For the most part of Cars 2, Francesco is a big mouth bravado, but by the end comes full circle becoming more friendlier towards Lightning and the other racers. My favourite scene with Francesco was before the final race in his hometown Italy as he jokes around with his mother Mama Benali. Flo is the owner of Flo's 8 Cafe and is Ramone's girlfriend. She's a classic 1950s show car, and if it weren't for Flo's fuel and oil, the town would completely fall apart. Sally's the most kind-hearted character in the Cars universe. She's the owner of Cozy Cone Motel and ends up falling for Lightning after a long drive through carburetor country where she brings out Lightning's kinda more likeable side. Part of me thinks that Ramone was primarily included to sell merchandise, as he's had so many different paint jobs throughout the franchise. On saying that, I adore the character and his relationship with Flo. He's a cool, easygoing car who likes to just go with the flow. Luigi and Guido are the most fun characters from the Cars franchise. The comedic pair are always pushing tyre sales by offering major discounts and are a little reckless, but they mean well. I was delighted that they were brought along for the main adventure in Cars 3 and not sidelined like all the other Radiator Springs townspeople. Doc Hudson, aka the Hudson Hornet, is one of the most successful and respected race cars in history. He gives wise advice to help Lightning and is an all-round genuinely kind character. Sadly, Paul Newman passed away before Cars 2 was released, but Pixar paid respect to the character's legacy in Cars 3 by showing flashbacks to the Hudson Hornet in his prime racing days, paying tribute to the character. Tow Mater is widely considered as the most annoying Pixar character. I was on board with his outgoing personality and wicked sense of humour, and loved that he was given the spotlight in Cars 2, but wish he was given more to do in Cars 3. I love jerks who become likeable by the end of their respective movies type characters, so naturally I was a big fan of Lightning McQueen in the original Cars. I didn't mind how he wasn't the primary focus of Cars 2 and felt that he had enough to do. It was an interesting choice to make him Cruz's mentor in Cars 3. Thanks for watching the video. Feel free to leave your favourite Cars characters in the comments section below.